Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Tina Parcell.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please be seated.
Ma'am, there's water in that pitcher. There's Kleenex if you need them.
And I will need water.
Okay. Just push the button on top. Okay.
Thank you.
Close to the mic.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Lutina Parcell. I go by Tina.
Ms. Parcell, where do you reside?
I would prefer not to give my home address, but I do live in Greenville County.
Greenville County?
Yes.
And what is your relationship to Christina Parcell?
She's my younger sister.
And so, can you tell this jury a little bit about y'all's relationship going back to the 2000s and kind of taking us through that?
Sure. I mean, she was 2 years younger than me, so we were close. We were different people, but we were, close in age, close as sisters. Early 2000s, she'd gotten married for the second time. I got married for the first time. We were both living our lives. We were close, but not intertwined, I guess would be the best way to put it. And we were friends, not best friends, but we were friends. We were still, young enough where all of your childhood, younger, older sister relation, all of that baggage hadn't quite gone away yet.
And did she ever begin a relationship with John Mello?
Yes, she began dating Mr. Mello, I believe, around December of 2008.
And in 2008, where were y'all living?
2008, I lived near downtown on Glen Street, right behind Cleveland Park. My sister lived at that time, in her home in Greer with her estranged husband.
And how long did Christina Parcell and John Mello date?
They broke up, to my understanding, October of 2015, so just under 7 years.
And during that time, did she have a child?
She did. She had my niece.
And when was your niece born?
June of 2012.
And so during the time in which Christina Parcell was dating John Mello, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
So they began seeing each other, again, just based off of my sister's papers and all of that sort of thing. December of 2008. I'm the kind of person I have to put things in place and time. So December of 2009, my dad had his first stroke when he was 51. And within a year, so April or May of the next year, my sister wrote a letter cutting off contact with our whole family, saying that she had reached a new place of spiritual love and needed to only have true and pure love in her life, etc.
And so around 2009, did you see her very often?
I would see her less and less in 2009, and then beginning in 2010, she cut off contact, and we didn't see her for 4 years.
So from about 2009 to 2013?
2010 to 2014, we didn't see her for 4 years.
And did y'all have the occasion to reconnect?
My sister reached back out to my parents July of 2014. My parents found out they had a grandchild, that my niece was 2 years old. My sister began reconnecting. She reached out to me. We met for, I don't know if it's lunch or dinner, but Freddy's Custard and Easley was the first time I kind of got to see her and my niece again for the first time in 2014.
And so during that time, did you know where Christina Parcell was living?
She lived at a house at Easley on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street. I don't remember Avenue or Street.
And is that where she brought home her daughter?
Yes, my understanding is Aida lived with her full time. The photos I've seen of that time period, she had a room, there were photos there, they lived together.
And so she was raising your niece during that first couple of years.
Yes, and all the court documentation follows that as well.
And during that time, did you have the occasion to meet John Mello?
Not during the first few years of my niece's life because we didn't have contact. I met him maybe a time or two from 2014 to when they broke up in 2015.
Now, did they ever live together?
No, he was living with his wife at the time.
So around 2014, 2015, you and your sister sort of reconnected?
She reconnected with the whole family, correct.
And did Christina Parcell and John Mello ever engage in disputes over who had rights to their daughter?
For years, yes.
About when did that custody dispute begin?
They broke up sometime in October of 2015, and I know that she had a family court deposition in March of 2016, so almost immediately would be the best I could put it.
So about the time y'all reconnected, she was already engaged in disputes with John Mello over the custody of her daughter.
I don't believe that they were. I don't believe they had begun in 2014 when she first started reconnecting with our family, but within that next year, shortly after they broke up.
So from that point on, were you, I don't want to say involved, but were you aware of the dispute, and did you support your sister during that time?
Well, sure. Not financially, emotionally, or, because we had been estranged for 4 years, that is, it sounds so trite. It's a big hurt. This is my baby sister, and I'm trying to find a way to put her back in my life. So even though she was going through this custody battle, I was also kind of trying to get over my hurt feelings with her. So we interacted, but we weren't, again, tied at the hip best friends at that point.
And so as time goes on, did the custody dispute continue?
For years, yes.
And did Christina Parcell begin a relationship with Brad Post?
Yes, she did.
About what time did she begin that relationship?
Again, based on documentation I've seen in her effects, within a few months of ending things with John Mello.
So around 2015?
Yes.
And so pushing up to 2020 time frame, did your relationship with her grow closer?
Yes, in January of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, which is scary, and you dropped something. It's scary, it's aggressive. My sister and I met for lunch, and we're making a plan for how are we going to get my mom through this. If something happens to mom, how are we going to take care of our dad? Who's had multiple strokes. And during this lunch, she looked at me and said, I really want you to be a bigger part of my life and my niece's life. And so we started consciously choosing to be more involved with each other.
And at that time, where was everybody living?
So at that time, COVID. I was sheltering in place with my estranged husband in my marital home in Greer. That's awkward, but it was. My sister, again, she rented a duplex, so when she had visitation with my niece, they would do those visitations in the duplex, and then when she was not living in the duplex, she spent her time with Brad Post.
Okay, and up until about 2020, did John Mello and Christina Parcell share custody of Aida?
Early on, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can really know. They had a gentleman's agreement early on about custody that suddenly nobody agreed to, so they went into court. John had primary custody. My sister had visitation, standard visitation every other weekend, weeks during the summer, time on birthday and Mother's Day, at the holidays. I think it's Richards Brown. I don't remember the name.
And so, and then during all this time, was there litigation going on between the two?
Yes, multiple times.
So I'm going to take you to about October of 2020.
Yes.
Did John Mello leave the country with your niece?
Yes, he emailed my sister and said we won't be here for the next visit weekend, can't make it to the next visit weekend, something to that effect, and missed the court-ordered scheduled visitation. Didn't know where or why necessarily until shortly after, when we discovered they were out of the country.
And so in October of 2020, where was Christina living, that same duplex?
Again, March going to April of 2020, I'm sheltering in place with my now ex-husband, so super great. I decided I didn't want to do that, and I'm getting an apartment for myself. And my sister had just said, I want us to be closer, and her lease on that duplex was coming due in that spring of 2020, and I told her, I'm getting an apartment. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment. I clearly am a army of one and don't need a 3-bedroom, but if I got a 3-bedroom, then you could have your visit weekends with me, and we can spend time together. We have a playground, have a pool, etc., etc. So summer going into fall of 2020, my sister had her visit weekends with my niece in my apartment, and then she, again, was living for the most part with post non-visit weekends or non-visit weeks.
And was Christina Parcell working during this time?
Yes, she was a vet tech.
Was she a full-time vet tech or a...
No, at that time she was part-time.
So in 2020, y'all discover that your niece has left the country with John Mello.
Yes.
Did this sort of set off a new set of litigation as far as the custody dispute is concerned?
Yes, she filed a rule to show cause in family court under the then agreement that she had, because they had reached an agreement. He's in violation of that agreement. Rule to show cause was, the family court equivalent of you broke the agreement. Once we determined where he was, she had already spoken to family court, her lawyer, Greenville County, tried to reach out to SLED, tried to reach out to the FBI. Once we discovered where they were, started investigating, how do you get someone back from a foreign country?
And was she dedicated to trying to get her daughter back?
Every day.
So what did she do?
Once we finally figured out that there is a Hague Convention for child abduction, not just war crimes, but truly for child abduction, reached out to the State Department. Her first contact was Zach, and then the second contact was a woman named April Conway. And essentially, you go through this entire application of the circumstances. You have to provide the court orders, the existing orders, that funnels up through the State Department to, they call it the Central Authority. So the U.S. Central Authority then reaches over to their counterpart in whatever the country is, because this happens for all of these countries that are a part of the convention. And then it goes down their chain. In this case, it was Italy.
And when did she start that process?
Oh, we found out where they were late October or early November, so probably November, possibly December of 2020.
And again, how did you find out that your niece was in Italy?
Her father posted a photo on Facebook of her standing in, think like a cobblestone plaza type situation. It was nighttime. There was a banner on the wall behind her that said the name Rovigo, Italy. And once we began searching down that rabbit hole, we found an online news article.
And were you having any contact with your niece at that time?
First time my sister got to speak with my niece was Christmas Day of 2020, so it had been 2.5 months.
All right, so you mentioned this Hague Convention. Did Christina continue to pursue that and, in fact, have some hearings in Italy regarding the ultimate custody of your niece?
Yes, so when you go through this process with The Hague, I am not an expert, but this is one of those things that kind of sticks with you. Since it goes through the central authority, essentially that other country, their government is acting on your behalf. So the equivalent of Walt in Italy was representing my sister. It's not that she had to hire an attorney. The state or the nation of Italy was doing it, because this is all international agreements and arrangements. All communication was done to her through the State Department. So they channel up, it goes over, it comes down, and back and forth. The State Department let her know that a hearing had been scheduled for February of 2021, and that she could attend either virtually or in person. And she called me to let me know. I was at work. She called me, and I asked her if she wanted to go, and she said yes. And I asked her if she wanted me to go with her, and she said yes. So I bought 2 round-trip tickets that day.
And did y'all ultimately go to Italy for a hearing?
We flew out of Atlanta on Wednesday, March 10th. We arrived in Venice, Italy at the Marco Polo Airport. The things that stick with you. We arrived around noon that Thursday. Court was the morning of Friday. We flew back to the States that Sunday.
And were you successful in getting your niece back?
We were nothing at getting my niece back. There was no decision reached in that trip in March. They said they would deliberate and they would reach out with more information.
Now, when you were there, did you get to see your niece?
Did I lay eyes on her? Yes.
Did you get to speak with her?
And again, this is just based on what happened, not I know the rules of Italy. But when we were there, they said the mother has to go in, the father has to go in, and the minor child cannot go in. He brought her to court, and she was not allowed to go in the courtroom, and she had to stay outside of the courtroom. I couldn't go in because I wasn't a party. She was now an unattended minor in a foreign country, which is, again, not great. And they asked if I would watch her. His attorneys asked that I not speak with her. That wasn't a court order. It was just, hey, can you sit here and watch her and not say anything?
And was John Mello there as well?
Yes, he's the one that brought my niece into court for that hearing.
So did y'all ever return back to Italy again?
My sister returned to Italy. So this was in March of 2021. She, again, received notice from the State Department it felt like forever, of course, but a few weeks later, either end of March, beginning of April, there's another hearing. Again, you can attend virtually or in person. She said, I want to go in person. I asked if she wanted me to go again, and she said, no, I'll go by myself.
And so did she fly to Italy?
She did fly to Italy, give or take tax day.
And was she successful in getting the return of your niece?
At first there was no decision reached, and they said you can leave and come back when we decide. She opted to stay, and a few days later, I can check my records for actual dates, a few days later, they let her know that they had decided to repatriate. Italy repatriated my niece to my sister. John Mello and my niece were brought to a police station. Aida was given to my sister. My sister then had to wait a week to get a replacement passport for my niece because hers had expired when they were in Italy.
While Christina was over there, did she have to hire bodyguards?
We had 2 bodyguards. When we were there, we weren't allowed to, because again, COVID, we weren't allowed to take public transportation. We weren't allowed to sit down in restaurants. So we did have 2 people that were hired to both provide some protection for that day in court, but also to get us from point A to point B while we were in court. And she had the same staff were hired when she went back.
So what day did Christina and your niece return?
April 22nd of 2021.
So when they returned, to what residence did they initially go?
They started living with me full-time in the apartment that we discussed. The lease on that apartment was up in the middle of May, so I'd already started making arrangements to, live somewhere rather than renew the lease on the apartment.
And so, did you eventually secure another location?
I had made an offer to buy the Canebrake home December 17th of 2020. I'd already been trying to buy that house for 4 months.
And did y'all eventually move into 122 Canebrake?
We moved into 122 Canebrake on May 14th of 2021.
So when once y'all moved in, you and who all lived there?
I was in the master bedroom, a nice tan with wood trim and a bay window. My sister was across the hall in a not great yellow bedroom. My niece was down the hall from her in what came as a hot pink bedroom. And she was thrilled about that. So it was the three of us. I had chosen this home. It was large enough. There was an ensuite. You saw it in the walkthrough. The salmon colored in the back had its own full bathroom, and that was going to be where my parents could live if they needed to in the future. So it was the three of us.
So you talked about this custody dispute, let's call it, before John Mello and your niece went to Italy.
Yes.
And now we're past that. During this time frame up until May of 2020, how would you describe the dispute, this custody dispute between Christina and John?
It was active until the moment she died. There were still hearings while he was in Italy. He did not return to the United States for the, I guess it was 5 months, 3 weeks that they were here, almost 6 months. He would attempt to retain counsel, or did retain counsel, though it attend a hearing on his behalf. There was a hearing with regards to when could phone calls happen.
Did y'all ever fear for your safety or anybody, or your niece's safety, or your safety?
We wouldn't let her play outside by herself. It is a beautiful neighborhood, an exceedingly safe neighborhood. I mean, kids everywhere. So it's not that the neighborhood wasn't safe. We just didn't want her to be playing by herself. We didn't want her to get taken. The front window, part of why we always left it open was so we could see the front yard if she was out there.
Did John Mello ever do anything that made y'all feel unsafe?
Can you be more specific with your question with regards to place and time?
Around that time.
Around that time, I can't say if it was John Mello or not. I know that my employer received an anonymous packet full of John Mello and my sister's family court documents, and I know my sister didn't send it.
About the end of June and July, do you remember Christina and Brad Post receiving some envelopes?
Yes. I didn't. Many envelopes. It was kind of a flurry of activity as to had all of them arrived in our neighborhood, his neighborhood, the guardian, her attorney, her employer. It was.
And were you aware of the contents of those photos?
Yes.
I mean, of those envelopes?
Yes.
What were the contents of those envelopes?
If it were something that existed in South Carolina, I would call it revenge porn, but apparently that's not illegal here, so.
So they were
naked pictures of my sister.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1 for identification purposes only. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1A and 1B. And I'm going to ask you if you recognize these photos. And I'm sorry to have to show you these to you.
Yes, that is my sister, Christina.
And then I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 6, envelope States Exhibit 6, and ask you if you recognize photos 6A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yes, those are all my sister.
So, y'all received these about June and July of 2021.
Yes.
Now, did your sister go to the police?
Yes, she went to the police. She went to a postal inspector.
In regards to the photos, how do you know that's your sister?
I'm going to try not to be. I recognize her, having known her her entire life. I recognize her haircut. I recognize her tattoos.
And can you give this jury a time frame of when those photos were taken?
Based on the length of her hair and again the state of her tattoos, I would say somewhere between 2010 and 2011.
And was that the time in which she was dating John Mello?
That's correct.
Now, so how old would Christina Parcell be?
She was born in 1980, so 2010 she would have been 30, 2011 31.
30, 31.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to take you to, well, when did y'all move in? When did you move into the Canebrake house?
May 14th of 2021.
So from then until October 13th, 2021, what was life like?
Well, it was still COVID, but it was less COVID-y than it had been. So my niece joined the swim team and played her first team sport. She had friends in the neighborhood. She miraculously was promoted from 3rd to 4th grade, even though she missed 6 months of that school year. I worked downtown. My mother would come and babysit if Christina and I both had to work, or maybe our schedules overlapped. And I know that this sounds odd, but I would text my sister, I'm coming home, can you chop the onions? I'm making this for dinner, or I'm going to the grocery. I mean, it was a really standard. We're living together, and we have a kid, and school, and etc.
So I'm going to take you to October 13th, 2021. Where were you working that day?
I worked at a company called Norris Financial Group in downtown Greenville.
And we've seen video of your car leaving. Do you remember about what time you left to go to work?
That's not my car. That was a rental. But I left, give or take, 8:30 that morning.
And went to work?
I did go to work, yes.
And when did you realize that this incident happened?
I had a voicemail. My phone hadn't rang, but I had a voicemail. I don't know. It's a thing that happens sometimes. And it was from Brad Post saying there's emergency at home. You need to, emergency at the house. You need to come home. And so I grabbed my purse, walked into the hall, told my boss, there's an emergency at the house. I'm going to go home. And made my way to the car.
And before you left for work, what was going on inside the household as far as Christina and your niece and everybody?
Do you mean
About
that?
what time did they
Do
wake
you mean
up?
that morning?
That
Okay.
morning.
I slept a little later than normal. Who knows why? And Christina had a job interview, so she was not necessarily up earlier than normal, but trying to get the day started and out the door earlier than normal. So she took Aida to school while I was drinking my morning coffee in that middle sitting room, where we called it the den. That's where we spent our time. Christina came back. She had forgotten the school communication folder that you're supposed to bring back every week. She'd forgotten that. So she came back to the house to get the school communication folder and stood in the doorway and said she had a hair appointment that afternoon and it was gymnastics that afternoon and what are we going to cook for dinner? And then she said, I love you, bye. And she walked out the door.
And when did you first hear about this incident?
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency, and as I was going back to my car, he called again, and I again went straight to voicemail, so I called him back, and he said, it's her, I think she's dead. And so I got there as fast as I could.
So did you arrive back at the house?
Give or take 11:30 that morning, yes.
Now, in regards to your house, what door do y'all namely do you namely use to enter and exit the house, and which doors do you have keys to? Explain to this jury your front and side door.
Yeah. So I made an offer December of 2020. Less than a year into COVID, and what neither I nor my realtor knew, this house was under foreclosure. We didn't know that. And because of COVID, all foreclosures were under a moratorium. So it was in foreclosure, but they, not done in foreclosure. And we kept trying to complete the sale and couldn't get the final number that you had to have, the closed number, the actual dollars you had to have. So by the time the lease was coming up on the apartment, I have to have a place to live. I want to buy this house. And so we had what's called an occupancy prior to purchase agreement, where you're essentially renting the house from the people that own it. So we had this, so I could move in before I owned the house, but it's still a rental. So we had keys for the front door only. We didn't have a key for the back door, and since I didn't own the home, I couldn't change the locks. It was a rental. So when we came and went day in, day out, we would go through that front door. That first month, more than one occasion, we would go out the back door, go play in the yard, try and come back in the back door and get locked out because we had no key for the back door. And like I crawled into the garage one time to get in the house. So when we were home,
When you say back door, is that the door down the side of the driveway?
Yes, I would go into the sunroom, which was my office. And so when we were home, we would leave that door open, but really tried to be diligent to lock it up at night, when leaving, etc.
So you would lock both doors when y'all were going to sleep at night.
Yes, and it's just part of that nighttime routine. You go, you check the doors, you turn off the lights, you slide the deadbolt on the front door because it had a little slidey lock, and then go on down the hallway.
So if you were going to get out of your car in your driveway and you were coming home from work, which door would you typically use?
Always the front door, not typically, always.
Always the front door.
Yes.
So it would be normal for if Christina Parcell arrived home from a job interview, which door would you imagine she would enter into? to?
She could only enter the front door.
So, what about the curtains in the front of the front room?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they were kept open.
And what was that front room's meant for?
So it's a standard ranch house where you have that front long, skinny, formal living room that nobody uses unless you're the kind of person that has furniture with plastic on it, and that's not my life. So yeah, I see that. You know what I'm talking about. But that front window got a lot of light, so, and you saw in some of the photos, my sister kept her plants there. We had my 2 silver chairs. The neighborhood kids and my niece would do puzzles in that room, arts and crafts. My sister had a desk where she did her schoolwork that was in front of the smaller window, but it wasn't the TV room or the family congregation eat dinner room. We did that in the den on the other side of that wall.
And so when you left that morning for work, were those blinds open or were they closed?
We always left because it was always open. Blinds and curtains were always open to get lights in for the plants. We didn't keep a light on in that room, so we weren't concerned, say at nighttime, we weren't concerned people were going to see us through that window because we didn't do anything in that room at nighttime that people would see. We were on the other wall, so it was just always open.
So when on this incident, did you talk with law enforcement about that day? Did they interview you? Did you talk to them?
Yes, I sat in Investigator Sparkman's vehicle, and he said, tell me the history of your sister. And I said, how far back do you want me to go?
Did you kind of tell them what you told us here today?
And then
More or
some,
less?
yes.
Did you tell him anybody you thought might have done this?
I said, I absolutely believe John Mello did it.
Did you know where John Mello was located?
I knew he was supposedly in Italy, but who knows?
And Ms. Parcell, have you ever met Zach Hughes?
No.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I've spoken at him, but no, never with him.
Prior to October of 2021, have you ever spoken to him?
No.
Ever seen him before?
No.
Noticed him?
No.
Have you ever seen Christina Parcell talk to him?
No.
He's never been to the house?
Oh, no. I'm not while I was there. I wasn't there 24/7, but no.
Did you know her to ever have any communications with him?
I found this week when I was reviewing all of the legal files an email John Mello sent to my sister where he CC'd.
Y'all can approach. I'll sustain your objections.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have you ever known Christina Parcell to have any interaction with
No,
Zach
absolutely
Hughes?
no interaction, no.
Ms. Parcell, you've heard testimony here today, yesterday, that there was cocaine, a small bag of cocaine found in that front sitting room. Do you ever use cocaine?
No.
Did y'all keep cocaine in the house?
No.
Did you know Christina to use cocaine?
I've never seen her do cocaine.
And we've discussed this child custody dispute. Was there a guardian appointed to your niece?
Yes, so once my niece was taken and my sister filed a rule to show cause, which essentially opens up the prior action that had been settled, the court appointed a guardian ad litem to act in the best interest of my niece.
And would the guardian keep in contact with Christina Parcell?
The guardian was in very frequent contact with Christina. The guardian did home visits of my apartment, number one, because that's where I would have been returned to. She also did a home visit of canebrake. I'd have to check paperwork to see if Christina took drug tests during that time. There were many over the years. So,
You know that she was asked to take drug tests.
oh, many times over the years.
Did you ever know Christina to use cocaine?
No.
All right, Ms. Parcell, if you'll just answer any questions this council may have.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Mr. Parcell. My name is Mark Moyer. And I have some questions for you today. Okay. So just want to start off with a little bit about your background with Ms. Parcell. You said Christina was about 2 years younger than you, is that right?
2 years, 4 days.
2 years, 4 days. And you all began living together, the first time was at the Woods Road apartment, is that right?
I had room in my apartment designated for her to have visitation with my niece. Yes.
Okay, so y'all weren't living together at the
As I testified to earlier, she had visitations with my niece under my roof at that apartment, but my sister herself typically lived with hosts during those times.
Okay. And it
No.
wasn't until you all moved into the canebrake house that you all were living together?
No, as I testified earlier, when my sister and my niece returned from Italy, April 22nd of 2021, my niece and my sister lived with me full time. The first few weeks I was still at the apartment, but we moved into canebrake May 14th of 2021.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about the custody disputes that were going on. You said you did not stay very much involved in the actual disputes at the beginning of that. Isn't that right?
No, that is not actually the character of my testimony. What I said was that my sister and I were becoming closer and essentially trying to get closer after she had cut contact with me for 4 years. So that's not something you get over quickly
Sure.
or immediately.
I understand. But that kept you from staying very much in tune with exactly what was going on at that time, right?
Well, that and John Mello threatening to have me charged with kidnapping, that also had a factor in it.
Okay. And you gave up, Christina gave up custody of Aida to John Mello, didn't she?
No, I don't believe that's actually accurate, and I would like to make sure it's accurate. As I testified earlier, she and Mr. Mello had a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, and then when my sister was not receiving the visitation she thought she was due, that's when the actual court actions began, which is not in any way, shape, or form the same as giving up custody, I believe.
Okay, but John Mello had primary custody.
I believe that the agreement was written that he had custody and she had visitation, correct?
Okay. So that was in the court documents, that he had custody, and she didn't dispute that. She didn't fight that, did she?
She had fought that repeatedly, trying to get custody, and then would reach an agreement with him.
But not initially, though. When that first document came out for where John got custody, when John Mello got custody, she did not,
Mr. Mello had physical custody before there was a document in that original Pickens County family court action. Mr. Mello had physical custody and was not allowing my sister to have visitation, so she took him to court and then reached an agreement where he retained custody, but he was not granted custody by the court.
okay, but she reached an agreement, so they didn't have to fight it out in the courts because she allowed him to have custody, correct?
That is the agreement which she reached. That's not the same as allowing, but sure.
Well, she agreed to it. That's what an agreement is, right? Correct?
She entered that agreement, yes.
Okay, thank you. And it was not until Ida was taken to Italy by John that she began trying to get full custody. Is that true?
No, they had multiple family court cases. Sometimes she initiated, sometimes he initiated, trying to modify the agreement that they had.
And it wasn't modified until after she came back, Ida came back from Italy, right?
Honestly, I would have to check the paperwork.
Okay. Now, you had met Brad Post before he started dating Christina in 2015 or 2016, correct?
He was a customer at my father's cigar store.
Right. And that was somewhere around 2000 or 2001 when you met him?
I couldn't tell you. He was a person that sat in my father's cigar store, so I couldn't tell you the first time I noticed him as a human being, no.
Okay, and you worked for him for a period of time?
No, I did not.
You don't remember?
My sister worked for him, I did not.
Your sister did, but you never worked for him?
My father?
No, did you never work for Brad Post?
So I worked for a company. It was originally called eBridge Technologies. It was owned by Braddock Cunningham. It was a software company. That is where I worked. And then Mr. Cunningham is the one who began purchasing NC&E, Network Controls and Electric. So no, I did not work for Brad Post. I worked for Brad Cunningham, who purchased NC&E from Brad Post.
Okay, so if Brad Post said that you worked for him, that would be incorrect?
I never heard him say I worked for him, so I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I'm saying if you did, he told this department that you worked for him for a period of time, that would not be true?
No, I worked for eBridge Technologies, which again, I don't want to say subsidiary because I didn't do any of the paperwork, but eBridge Technologies, that software company, kind of merged with Network Controls and Electric once Braddock Cunningham became the person that was buying NC&E.
Okay. Christina was working part-time at as a vet tech, correct?
Correct.
When she died. And Bradley Post was helping her out financially, was he not?
I couldn't give you any type of dollar amounts, but I assume so.
Was he helping with the house at Cambridge?
No.
Okay, but you all had conversations about when you were having trouble getting the house. Did you not have conversations with Christina about getting Brad Post involved to help with that?
No, I unequivocally did not want Brad Post involved.
Okay. So you never talked to Christina about, you never sent her an email or said, this house is more expensive than I thought, so maybe Brad Post could buy it and then we could rent from him?
No. So I found out October 9th, 2021, that the people I was trying to buy the home for, again, it was in foreclosure. Foreclosures were in forbearance because of COVID, and the dollar amount, the cost to close kept going up, going up, going up. My realtor called me that Saturday and said, it's got to be this much. It was approximately 10 to 15% more than I was approved for. And I told her, I can't do that, but give me a couple days. I'm going to figure something out. And so my sister and I began texting new houses to try and buy a different house, which meant I was looking for a new house at the time my sister was murdered, which means I was not trying to have Brad Post buy Cambridge so I could rent it from him.
Okay. Now, when John Mello took his daughter and Christina's daughter to Italy, he had the primary custody at the time, didn't he?
That was the agreement, and also he was to allow visitation as per the agreement he reached in family court, yes.
Okay. And he was a dual citizen of this
I know
country.
he claims to be a dual
Let me finish
citizen.
the question, sorry. He was a dual citizen of this country and Italy, isn't that true?
I know he claims to be a dual citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
And your niece became an Italian citizen while she was in Italy.
I know he claims she became an Italian citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
Okay. And you talked about having a bodyguard or someone to drive you around while you were in Italy and then back here. Brad Post was paying for that, wasn't he?
I don't know who paid. I didn't see an invoice.
So when Christina went to Italy in mid-April for the final hearing, she went alone that time, as you testified, correct?
Oh, I didn't go with her. That's correct. I understand she went alone.
And she returned to this country with Aida, right?
She returned with my niece April 22nd is when they landed in Greenville.
And you met her at the airport?
Yes, I did.
The guardian ad litem was there?
Yes, she was.
Brad Post was there?
Yes, he was.
Who else was there?
Representative from Lindsey Graham's office was there. Friends of the family were there. My parents, people. My sister's neighbor from the duplex where she used to live, and her children were there.
And Brad Post was there?
As I stated earlier, yes, he was there.
And he proposed to her at the airport, didn't he?
That was a choice that he made, yes.
Then there was a welcome party later that night too, same day?
No, sir. Everybody was at the airport with flowers, with balloons, with signs. My sister and my niece got packed into my car. I took them to the apartment. I picked up Indian takeout food, and we ate Indian takeout food at my home that night.
Okay, so the welcome party was what happened at the airport.
Yes.
And so just to be clear then, Aida was out of the home and gone between October the 5th of 2020 and then mid-April of 2021, correct?
My understanding is October 4th, but again, since I was not there when they left the flight, I would have to check documents.
Okay, now you all moved into the Canebrake house on May the 14th of 2021, right?
That's correct. That's when the movers came on Friday the 14th.
Okay, and you testified today something that contradicts what you told Investigator Sparkman in your interview about where everyone stayed in the house.
I was in the tan room, the master room, in the back with the bay window, right over the nook. My sister was across the hall in the yellow bedroom. My niece's bedroom was the hot pink bedroom just down the hall.
Okay, you told Investigator Sparkman that that room had been turned into a playroom and that your niece
No, the
stayed.
purple bedroom was going to be the designated playroom.
So do you remember telling Investigator Sparkman that your niece slept in the bed in the same room with Christina?
No, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm saying there were times that she would sleep there. She would sleep on the couch. She might sleep in her bed. And my understanding is she co-slept with her father as well.
And you told Investigator Sparkman, though, that you didn't have a room, that the room that was supposed to be for her was turned into a playroom and that she stayed with Christina.
I don't believe I said that she didn't have a room. It clearly had her toys in it, had her clothes in it, had her bed in it. Now, again, I just discovered that my sister was dead in my house and I was homeless, so it's entirely possible I misspoke, and for that I apologize.
Okay, that was several days later. It wasn't the same day.
And again, I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Okay. Now, Brad Post would come by the house every day, would he not?
I can't say it was every day. Depending on the mercurial relationship, sometimes they were in a better spot. So there would be times where he wouldn't come over at all. There would be times where he would come over and have dinner.
Okay. But while they were dating and not broken up, as you told Investigator Sparkman, Brad Post would come over every day. Isn't that true?
Bless you. Again, not a matter of broken up. If they were in a good patch or a bad patch, as anybody is having a good patch or a bad patch, there would be times he'd be there every day, yes, for dinner or what have you. There would be times where he wasn't.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Ida wasn't allowed to play outside
No, I said we wouldn't let her play outside by herself.
by herself. So, and you mentioned that she had friends in the neighborhood, so would friends come over and play inside with her in the house?
Well, no, she would play outside with friends. We
Yeah.
would do our best to, again, keep an eye out on her, on the friends, as any adult would do to make sure that children are going to be safe, especially with the creek nearby. So she would play in the house, outside of the house.
Okay. And her friends would play outside with her and play inside with her?
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you just a few questions about the packages that you received, that you were asked about by the solicitor. You mentioned the pictures that were in the packages, but in addition to the pictures, there were some website postings that were included, were there not?
I wasn't shown any by the solicitor.
Do you remember when you looked at the packages, though, do you remember seeing the website from the escort service?
I saw that there was something textual. I didn't lend credence to it.
Okay, and again, I hate to have to ask you about this, but were you aware of that part of your sister's past?
I was aware that allegations had been made in family court, just like there had been allegations made I was going to try and kidnap my niece, so I didn't lend credence to them.
Okay, you aware that she gave a deposition in which she did give credence to those allegations?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
So after the death of your sister, Christina, where was Ida
I'm sorry, could you clarify the question?
After your sister died, where was your niece?
I would also ask you to rephrase that question to be accurate.
Okay, who did your niece live with?
So after my sister was murdered, what is the question for that?
Where did your niece live?
The guardian ad litem, after my sister was murdered, got an ex parte emergency placement with me. My niece and I stayed with friends, and
Okay.
that's where we went.
All right, and then what happened with Aida on October the 19th of 2021?
She was put into foster care.
Okay, and what time of day was it? When?
It was at night.
Okay, and the police came and got her?
Yes.
About what time at night?
It was approximately 10:30 at night.
Okay. How long were the police at the house on that day?
I don't know, maybe an hour, less.
And she was taken into emergency protective custody at that time?
Yes.
And who got custody of Aida?
Would you clarify the question, please?
Where does Aida live now?
Oh, I've reached an agreement with Mr. Mello right now.
Okay, so you gave up custody to allow
I
John Mello?
never had custody, but
You dropped your petition to try to get custody.
I did not drop a petition. I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello,
Okay,
and he
you,
has custody.
okay, you never had custody of Aida.
I had ex parte custody briefly.
Okay, and then after Aida was taken out of the home, shortly thereafter, she went to live with John Mello, and she still lives with John Mello, isn't that right?
She was not with John Mello for the first almost year and a half after her mother's death, almost 2 years. She was in foster care, and then she was in third-party placement. He did not receive custody of her until August of 2023.
Okay, and she remains with him.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And John Mello was exonerated of the charges of taking Aida to Italy, is that right?
I believe what you're looking for is a directed verdict of not guilty, not actually exonerated by a jury, yes.
So a judge threw it out, basically.
A judge said South Carolina state law says a non-custodial parent has no rights to their child. Yes, that is correct.
So a judge threw it out. One moment, please. That's all the questions we have right now. Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor. After the murder of your sister, where did your niece go?
Are you talking short-term or long-term?
Both.
Again, she was ex parte emergency placed in my care. She was removed from my care and put in foster care for 2 months. After that, she was placed with Allison and Lamar Sutherland from December of 2021 until December of 2022, where she was then placed with her half-sister, Isabella Mello, John Mello's eldest child. She was there until August of 2023. And then in August of 2023, when I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello, where I had visitation and my niece was returned to his custody.
And have you seen your niece?
I've not seen my niece since August of 2024.
And do you have rights to see her?
I do.
And have those been complied with?
We currently have active family court action.
So you and John Mello are now in a family court action over the custody or access to your niece.
There is a new action, and the agreement that we reached is currently being appealed in the South Carolina State Court of Appeals.
No further questions.
Okay.
Any recross?
No recross, Your Honor. We would just ask that the witness remain under subpoena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I see counsel. Again, no discussion about this case among yourselves. Any research. Social media. I know y'all heard me. So we'll see you.